I'm Justin Davis, and this is Drone Camps RC. Chances are that you're watching this video because you're interested in learning how to fly a drone. I'm Justin Davis of Drone Camps RC. I've taught, well, millions, over 33 million people now how to fly drones over the past 7 years. I've been flying multi-rotors since the very beginning of building them from sticks and motors, and we started out with hard mount gimbals, and we worked our way up through servo mount gimbals and eventually brushless gimbals that you know today with DJI drones for getting that super smooth video. Today's video is not about getting super smooth video. Today is about having fun in the sport of FPV. So what is FPV? From the basics, FPV means first person view, and that means that your view is in the goggles and sitting in the pilot's seat watching out the cockpit while you're flying this little drone, and that's what makes this fun. They are also known as FPV race drones. We call them quads in the quad community, and today it's all about the SPC maker Bat78 ready to fly kit. So this bundle comes around $300. I believe this one is a little under $300. There's two different versions of it. It does come with goggles, a charger, 2 batteries in the box, and the charger does a 2S battery and a 3S battery. Now what's interesting about this quad is I feel like it could take even a 3S battery. It does have 1103 motors on here. It has 40mm props, and the great thing about this little quad is that the power for the video transmitter on board is up to 400 milliwatts. So that's actually higher than some of the other ready to fly bundles out there. So this one will go further out. It also includes a radio link transmitter which can be bound to other quads. It is a very compact, small transmitter that has multiple buttons on there with 3 position switches for multiple modes. You can fly in stability mode, which will keep it stable no matter what way you press the stick. If you let go of the stick, it goes back to stable. You can also fly it in horizon mode, and you can fly it in pure acro mode. And that's kind of like the holy grail of FPV that everybody wants to learn. And since the little Bat78 has bumpers on it, we can bump into a lot of things together learning how to fly acro. So this makes a great acro trainer drone. So this will be a good bundle for anybody that's just getting into FPV and wants to get started with their very first drone. This could be absolutely your very first drone. So let's go ahead now and let's get started with some fun with the Bat78. Let's do some flying, and let me show you some indoor and outdoor flying with the Bat78. I think you're going to be surprised at how fast it can be and how well it does actually slow down for some tree canopy exploration, which is a lot of fun. So take it outdoors and fly it up through the trees and just have one of the most unique experiences of your life. Here we go. Alright guys, we're going to start out with the indoor flight test, and I'm going to be your pilot guide today, longtime professional drone pilot, guiding you on your first flight. So when you plug in the battery of the Bat78 for the first time, fly it indoors first so that it doesn't get away from you and end up in the top of a tree. Now the fun part about this is flying in stability mode to start with. That's what the quad comes set up in. There is a Betaflight tutorial at the end of this video that shows you guys how to change the switches to the way I have them set up, which makes more sense. And in the long run, you'll do it on your other quads the same exact way. So always the arm switch on the left for me, and that's how I have it changed. You'll see that at the end of the video if you want to hang out. But first, flying this quad inside was fun. You can fly under chairs, you can set up like a little race course, you can even buy little tiny gates that work great for this quad, and they're made for tiny race drones. It's so much fun. You can set up a course and fly with your friends, but I just like to have fun around the house and trying to fly under the couch and bumping into things. And I gotta tell you, the greatest thing about this particular Bat78 drone is that, man, this thing is durable. I crashed and bumped and bounced off things all over the place. In the past, I've had other drones that didn't make it past the second battery, and I had a broken duct, and that's not fun, especially with this one being around the $300 price point, guys. You just don't want to have a broken duct on the first day. And I'm pretty sure you're not going to do it with the Bat 78. The frame is polycarbonate, super thick, probably one of the most durable, ready to fly indoor outdoor FPV drones out there that's available. But man, it really does move around the house quite fast with the 2S450 on board. So I think we should take it outside now and do the outdoor flight test. And this is a lot of fun. Start out in stability mode again, and look what happens to the video when you go behind things like a solid object like the house. It's gonna break up. It is 5.8 video, so we're flying in stability mode now and full stick forward. Let's see if we can catch up with that guy with the bicycle. We're going just about as fast as he is, and you know, you can fly these quads a couple blocks away and still have the receiver connection to the quad. Now we're in acro mode, so that takes off all the stability mode. Now I'm flying full stick forward, twice the speed, and now I'm able to do flips and rolls and what we call freestyle FPV. Now I'm slowing down here, went back in stability mode. Now we're going to do canopy exploration, flying through the trees, trying to avoid those what we call ghost branches, and that's so much fun. And here comes my third tree. Gonna make it through. Yes, I made it all the way through. Now let's do some celebration with a little celebration victory roll there. I like to do those after I do something hard. Always makes me feel good. So now let's go ahead back down. Let's do a dive here, a swooping dive down. And no washout there, you guys. So washout is what happens when a drone tumbles. It gets opposing forces on the flight controller and it makes the drone tumble, and it can make you crash. This flight controller has not tumbled on me, which is great. If you tried to power loop it, that means fly over a tree and back under it, it might. But again, this quad is so crazy durable. I mean, I've banged into trees with it. Other instances, I've had quads like this where I banged into a tree and I had a broken quad again, first day. So this quad can take a beating. It is definitely a great beater quad for your first quad. Like your first RC car, you probably destroyed it. This quad can really take some punishment. I mean, straight into a tree branch. And watch out for cars and people. You have obstacles and things to avoid in your neighborhood, but also most importantly, avoid people and traffic, of course. It probably wouldn't hurt somebody's car, but it might destroy your drone if they ran over it. But look at that acro speed, just so much fun there and so fast. I mean, for a beginner drone, that's close to a 3-inch race drone speed right there for an 1103 40 millimeter prop is extremely fast. This little guy only weighs around 98 grams. So, I mean, we're half the weight of what you actually have to register here. So this can go from mild to wild, and that's what's so fun about the Bat 78. And I flew this one before the standard version. You can get both versions, the RTF here, and you get the standard version if you already have a transmitter. But that was fun. Let's go back into the house now and finish up this review. Here we go. Alright guys, welcome back from the flight test. So let's just go over this quad and what's in the box, and also let me give you some beginner instruction here from me to you, some friendly advice. When you're first getting into FPV, there's some very basic things you're going to need. Eventually you're going to probably have to make a solder connection. Now the nice thing about this quad is that it has what we call plug and play motors. It has little plugs on the bottom just underneath this carbon board. If you remove this carbon board with the screwdriver, it has some Phillips head screws here, about 8 in total. Once you pull that off, you can see that there are little tiny plugs in here to pull on and off. So if you blow out one of these motors, these are 1103 series motors, and I'm just zoom into those so you can see them. And 1103, 11,000 kV, and those are SPC Maker branded motors. They are brushless motors with our 40 millimeter props on top. And again, that is right turn rear configuration. The reason that I wanted to show you the soldering iron and all the other gear sitting here today is because, you know, like I said, eventually you will need this stuff to work on your quad. Maybe not this quad, but maybe your 5-inch quad coming up. So the SE, I believe it was the model number on this particular soldering iron was SQ001. So I'll put the link down below for that soldering iron if you want to pick one of these up. The cool thing is that it can run on a 3S2200 battery, and that's usually what I just plug in with an XT60 cable, and then I'm off and soldering and making repairs. The next thing you want is some screwdrivers, and these are kind of like the perfect thing to have around for these micro-sized drones, and sometimes on the larger drones they come with tiny little screws for Phillips head, so those are nice. Those are just typical Stanley screwdrivers, nothing special there. You can get those at the hardware store. The next thing you're going to need is a decent set of drivers. So this one is kind of nice. I'll put a similar link down below for a set of drivers. This is our standard 2mm hex driver, and that's mostly the bolts that are on the bottom of these quads on the motors, and sometimes on the frame, but it depends. And speaking of the frame is pretty durable. It is polycarbonate molded injected plastic, carbon bottom plate. We've got LEDs on the back. We have that radio link antenna coming out the top rear, and this back here is your dipole for your 400 milliwatt VTX. And we have an all-in-one flight controller on this quad. It is an Maytech F411 flight controller, so it is a F4, fairly recent in the last couple years. F7s are coming out, but generally we don't have F7 on indoor sort of / outdoor whoops like this. So F4 flies great, and it flips and rolls and freestyles and does even some cinema style flying if you want. It will slow way down. So the quad has a durable frame on it, and probably one of the most durable ones out there. It does have 5 strut support on the bottom of the prop guards, and they're not deep enough to really be a duct. So it's a little quieter than some of the other quads out there. But when you're outdoors flying this, people will take notice, and it is actually quite fast if you want to fly it in acro mode. I suggest starting out in beginner mode, in stability mode, and I'm going to show you at the end of this video, if you want to hang out a little longer, I'm going to walk you through the Betaflight setup on here that I recommend from the Camps channel to you guys. So one of the other things you want to pick up is a set of helping hands. The helping hands are really nice for holding wires when you're doing wire-to-wire solder and things like that, or just holding a board still or the quad while you're making a solder connection. So with this kit, the good news is that you're not likely to have to solder anything for quite a while. The Runcam Nano 2 is on here also, and that is plugged into the board, I believe. So there is a plug underneath this canopy right here, a little tiny white JST plug. So if you blow out your camera, you can also replace that without having to solder, which is great. So inside the case, I feel like everything you could possibly need they've included with this kit. They did a great job of making sure that you guys had everything here, and actually a really nice and large layout for the Bat 78. This pair of goggles I have seen before. They are 5.8 diversity antenna style goggles with a nice patch included, so this will really get you a lot of penetration behind trees and things like that. If you fly around behind a building, it is likely that you can fail safe and the quad will drop to the ground. Friends of mine in the past have flown behind concrete, and that does happen. But on this pair of goggles, it has an internal battery as well, so you don't have to fiddle with any wires hanging off the goggles or plugging in a longer wire with a 3S2200, which is normally what I do when I'm flying my sky zones. And I didn't fly these goggles today because I'm a bit nearsighted, and this is too close to my face, and it causes it to look blurry for me. So if you have good vision, these box goggles are pretty decent for most folks. There's the screen. When the quad is plugged in, you will see all this information on the screen. So take out one of your batteries. It does come with 2 batteries, which is cool. And go ahead and plug that in and make sure your radio is on as well. And we're going to go ahead and press and hold. And when you take off, one tip as well is make sure that this little balance lead right here doesn't go up inside your props. I did break a prop doing that, so on my first outdoor flight. But this is a 2S 450 milliamp battery, and this is an HV battery, so I'm not sure if this charger actually charges HV, which would be interesting to find out. I believe this will charge it to the standard LiPo charge here. Let's look on the very bottom. 2S, 8.4 volt. Yeah, so this is going to charge it up to 8.4 volt. And there is a cable in this mesh part as well. So now you can see the telemetry on the screen. You can see the countdown timer on the top left. The next one down is going to be the voltage here for per cell. So you only have 2 cells in the battery. So that's 3.8 right now. 7.25 is the total voltage. So you don't want to fly it down much past that, because I've already flown this battery. You have your pilot name or the name of the aircraft in the middle, and that's craft name inside Betaflight. You also have the band that you're on in the channel, so that's race band 7. Also, it's going to be on F1, Fat Shark 1, inside your goggles. And we're running 400 milliwatt here. So if you want to get inside those menus and change the power, it's super easy. All you do is you take your transmitter, go to the left and go up, and see how that changed. Now it took me inside what we call smart audio. So we can go use the right stick here, and we can go down to features, go over to the right. You see how I did that? And go down again, go to VTX. We can turn pit mode on, and that means that you wouldn't disturb anybody while you turned your quad on. Very important that you don't turn this on near other people who are flying. So we can change the band and channel here. Also the power is super cool, up to 400 there. It says 25, so we'll change that up to 400. And now we'll set and say yes. And now we'll go back, and you want to go down to, you want to save. So make sure we save that. So we're going to go back again, and we want to go save and exit. And one more time, save and exit. Okay, now it is on 400 milliwatt for sure. Now also guys, if you want to record videos, there is an SD card slot just here beside the charge port. There is a USB cable in the box for charging the internal battery, and you're going to slide your SD card in there. I believe it's up to a 32 gigabyte SD card. This is your record button. Once you press that once, you'll see a red light here, and it will be recording. You also have band switch here and channel 1 through 8 on each band. You also have a quick search button there. If you turn on your goggles when you first get your BAT78, if you don't see any video, hit the search button real quick, and it's going to go through all the bands and channels until it hits that channel. And when it finds your channel, it's going to stop. Now to turn these goggles off, you press once and hold again, and they're powered off. And that's how you turn them on as well. So to put them back in the box, you kind of have to remove the antennas, and that's not hard to do. We just take those off. You also have a manual inside the box, which is super sweet. So it tells you all the information about the bands and channels. If you want to get on a certain band and channel, it should be inside this diagram. And now also guys, to turn the radio off, you press and hold. We're going to unplug the quad first. And the quad fits nicely in there, just like that, or face up if you want. Press and hold there, and you'll see that turn off. And Radio Link has an app, by the way. If you go on their website for the T8 here, we have an app that lets us configure and change auxiliary different aux channels on the switches as well, or bind up another quad on there, which is pretty cool. And on this user manual, it does say with DVR, so that you can record your videos. And this is what I was talking about. This is pretty important for the new guys. You need to learn your different bands and channels. This one does appear to have 5 channels, so about 5 bands and 40 channels here altogether. It also does have a resolution on the goggles of 800 by 480, so that's actually a pretty decent resolution on this pair of goggles. Now also in this pouch right here, I want to show you guys this. The cable that comes along with the charger, you're just going to plug this into the wall and plug in the balance port, and it will be charging. So 2S there and 3S here, and that will get that off and charging for you. But one thing you need to know is that it might have a European style connector on here. It might have something overseas, international. They do make a converter for this. Just go on Amazon. I'll try to put a link down below for one of these, but it converts it over to AC power, and then you can just plug it into the wall. So watch out for that. We also have an extra video cable in there. And what else do we have in here? Our 40mm set of props. And we have a diagram for the flight controller, if you pull off the top of this quad and you need to make a change, or you wanted to change up the receiver, say you wanted to add a Spectrum receiver on there, or FlySky, you're going to use iBus for FlySky. It has all of these terminals here, and all these pads are labeled. So ground 3 volt would be for Spectrum, 5 volt for any type of S-Bus receiver, and we have S-Bus on UART1. It only has 2 UARTs on this flight controller. We have RX1 there, TX1, SDA, and SCL. And it looks like you could even add GPS on this quad if it has SDA and SCL, which is kind of wild. And it is set up on a 45-degree angle here, so you can see that arrow is pointed forward here. And on the bottom of that flight controller and ESC combo, you have plug-and-play motors here, and it shows you 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's from the bottom. So motor 1 typically is flipped over, be 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're looking at this from the top like this, and you can see the actual terminals on here for each motor. Motor number 1, 2, 3, 4. If these broke off, you could always solder these wires straight to these terminals right here, and your motors would work again. But that's pretty cool. So it's a pretty nice manual in there for you guys. Plenty of information from SPC Maker. SPC Maker has been around for a long time, so they're one of the first companies that I worked with that gave us kits for micro brushless. And these type of drones originally, before they were called Whoops, they were called micro brushless, and the Whoop name came around a little bit later. But now we know these as Whoops, and I wouldn't really label this one as a Whoop, but people will call this one a Whoop anyway. You also have some extra storage in here for extra batteries. But overall, I think it's a pretty nice quad. 78 millimeter from motor to motor here as well, and plenty of power. One of the more powerful ones that I've seen out there for the ready-to-fly bundles as far as the video transmitter goes. So, and yes, I have seen these goggles before. They are very standard out there, and they do work great. And the screen actually looks pretty good with this Runcam Nano 2 on here. Very nice looking camera, so pretty sweet. I know you guys are going to ask me also, hey, can I put a sport cam on the top? Of course you can. You can put the Insta360 Go 2 that just came out on top of here, and they also have a super small little nano cam coming from Insta360. I love that company. They're always making like new stuff that's geared toward our hobby. So I gotta say thumbs up to Insta360 for like paying attention to us and giving us cameras that work great on our drones. One other thing I wanted to show you guys before I let you go is my charger of choice and balance board. This is a 6-in-1 balance board that plugs into an XT60 port right here, and the balance port, the balance plug is up to 6S, so you can charge up to a 6S battery on this board. You can charge 6 at once, which is super cool. So this will also do HV batteries. If you get an HV battery, just make sure that you charge it as an HV. It will have a little more voltage in each cell, but don't charge a standard LiPo that's a non-HV as an HV battery. It might explode on the charger, so be very careful with that. This one will be down in the link below. This is the Toolkit RCM6D charger, dual port there with a tiny little LCD screen, which works great. But I've had no problems with this, and you can also get different leads from XT30 to XT60 there, or XT60 down to XT30, and then you can charge the batteries that came in your bundle. But this is the URAV Blacklight series, the B6 Pro parallel balance charging board. This thing is awesome. So I'll try to put a link for both of these down below, and the power supply, a power supply that will work with this. You need a decent power supply because otherwise it will turn itself off if you put too many amps to it. But you guys are going to be charging smaller batteries. So let's go ahead now and summarize this kit versus some of the other ones. Some of the other ones out there that are popular are the Gep RC Tiny Go, and that was one of my favorites on the channel. And I feel like this one's up to par with that. This one does not have 4K video on it. If you want one that records 4K video, go get the Gep RC Tiny Go. If you want to record 1080p footage. I believe they also have an HD version of this one. So if you like the way this one looks versus the TinyGo, then get this one with the HD setup on there. This one with no HD on it, it's a little bit cheaper, under $300, but you're getting a lot here in this box. So everything you need to fly and start with FPV, and something that's not going to break the first day you have it. So this one is ultra durable and really a lot of fun to fly, and it'll freestyle. So beginner to pro with this little guy. Some of my friends would actually have fun power looping this thing and doing some crazy freestyle tricks. But have fun with it, guys, and let me know down in the comments below if you bought one of the most popular ones out there, whether it was the Gep RC TinyGo or the Emax Tiny Hawk 2 RTF. That one's also a good one. I'll put my top 5 favorite RTFs down below so you guys can check those out. And before we go, I have a couple more things I want to show you beginners, just about how to put the props on, and some important information for you. And then after that, I'm going to give you a full Betaflight tutorial on this quad, how I would set it up. So if you bought this one, you're watching this video, this will benefit you. So hang out and stay tuned for the Betaflight tutorial at the very end of this video, and a little more information before you go. Thanks again for hanging out with me, guys. I'm Justin Davis. I'll see you on the next one. Now, one other bit of information for beginners is that any type of quad that you ever buy, airplane, helicopter, quad, in the RC hobby, the first thing you need to do if you buy something from the store, I mean anywhere, any hobby shop in the world, is set whatever you bought down on a table or a bench where you have good lighting, and look over the quad to see what type of bolts are on here. And this is very important. Before you fly it, this could actually save you from a crash. Get your 2mm driver for first making sure that the bolts are on. And you want to check every single aircraft bind and fly or kit or whatever from any factory with a driver. Go over the entire quad with a driver, because a lot of these bolts are just put together really quickly by people in the factory, and they've gone to lunch, you know, and sometimes they come back from lunch and there might be something sitting there that they didn't really tighten. And most of the time, I always check the motor bolts, and 90% of the time they are wobble out of the motor loose. So don't over tighten them. One of the biggest things I can tell you in our hobby is not to over tighten things. Just get it so that it's nice and firm and snug. And also you want to check to make sure that when you're tightening up bolts on motors, that the bolt doesn't go up through and touch the copper coil on the bottom of the motor. So if you look really close, you can see there's a tiny little bit of space here between that motor bottom plate and those copper coils. So you always want to make sure that your bolts aren't too long. If you have a bolt too long and it touches those copper coils there, it'll actually burn out your motor. So that's something to look out for. Sometimes people take prop guards off things and they add the same bolts back, and then they burn out all 4 of their motors, and I've seen it happen. So you can also tighten up the camera bolts on the side as well. And if you want to, you can get a little Phillips head screwdriver and check all these bolts as well here, just to make sure that carbon plate is nice and firm on the quad. And look around for any other bolts that you might need to tighten. And I'm going to bring that camera angle down just a tiny bit so we can do some tree canopy exploration. It's always fun. And I'm going to check that bolt on the other side. And sometimes when you tighten a camera bolt, the camera will turn. So sort of hold it with your hand or your finger, and that way the camera doesn't turn with the bolt you're tightening. But that looks pretty good. That's one thing to be always very careful about, is checking all the bolts when you buy a brand new quad. Let's go ahead and turn on the scale as well, and let me give you a weigh-in on this quad. The Bat 78 by itself, it's weighing in at 53.5 grams, so well underneath the FAA registration point. And let's go ahead and add the 2S450 on there, and that's going to get you up to 81.7 grams. So that's actually really lightweight, under 100 grams. is really, really lightweight in the FPV world. Okay guys, so one really important bit of information also I want to share in this video is putting the props on the quad. Now at the end of this video, I'm going to take you and walk you through a Betaflight tutorial for your Bat78 ready to fly. One of the things about it is that it does not come with the props installed. They are off the quad when you first pull it out of the box. So the first mistake that a lot of new guys do is they put the props on wrong and the quad flips over. It's not likely that you're going to break anything by doing that, but this is a great tutorial because this is just a quick way that you know how to put the props on a standard prop configuration setup on a quad. Basically forever you'll remember this. So what I'd say is right turn rear, and right turn rear is what I've always told my guys on the camps channel. Right turn rear, and you'll have that prop right there. You can see the leading edge of it right there flips up, and when that motor spins it's going to turn to the right. So that's motor number one. Motor number two spins to the left. Motor number three also spins to the left. So you look at your prop right here and you see which way that's spinning, and it looks like that goes to the right. So that would be motor number four. And a lot of times we have the same diagonal turn from one motor to the next. So, but just to keep it in the right process here, we're gonna grab this left turn prop here, and there are no bolts on the Bat78 for the props. So they're just push-on props, and they're very tight. So they are kind of hard to get off. And now we're going to push that on, and it looks like we're good there. So we have right turn rear, motor number two is left turn, motor number three is left turn, and motor number four is right turn. And that is the way that the props go on your Bat78. Okay guys, for those of you who are sticking around for the Betaflight tutorial, let's go ahead and plug in the USB cable that's inside your kit to the bottom of your Bat78, and I showed you where that port is on the very bottom. It's the Android style cable, and it has to be a data cable, otherwise it won't connect to Betaflight. So after you've downloaded Betaflight configurator and you have the latest one, go ahead and install the drivers. If you're on a PC, if you're on a Mac, don't worry about it. Plug in the USB cable, and let's go ahead and connect the quad, and you should see USB pop up. If your quad is looking a little bit out of order right here, go ahead and go up to the top of this screen right here and click reset Z axis, and that will bring the back of the quad facing you. So when you're holding it on your desk or your couch or wherever you're sitting, your laptop, make sure that the back of the quad is facing you. So we're going to check all of the orientations on the quad, and all of this comes pre-set up from the factory, but I'm just kind of showing you guys how it should look. You've got this arrow up at the front of the quad dictating the direction, back, left, right, and forward here. So that all looks good. Now we can, at this point, if you want to, set it on a level surface, and it's kind of hard because they have a USB cable coming out the bottom of the quad, but you can calibrate the accelerometer. We don't need to do that, but we can go down to the ports, next menu down, click on that tab on the far left there. You'll see it has two UARTs. One is active for serial RX. That means that our radio link is on serial RX UART number 1. So that's our receiver. That's fine. We're going to show you more about that. And we have VTX's IRC tramp. That is for your smart audio. And if you want to get to that and change the power or the band or the channel of your quad, go ahead and press left stick to the left and the right stick up, and that will take you into the menus for changing a lot of things in the quad, namely your bands, channels, and power on your video transmitter. So you can go up to 400 milliwatt with this quad, which is great. So more milliwatt power than some of the other ready to flies out there. So we have a right turn rear configuration here. It is a standard quad setup for propellers in the direction of the motors. So we have motor number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that's generally how they are labeled in most quadcopters. And I'm taking this from the basics so that some of the new guys are getting some of this information for the first time. You always want to have motor stop off as well. D-Shot 600, that sounds good for the motor protocol. 5.5 on the motor idle throttle. That means the motor idle throttle when the quad is armed. So it will spin the motors up when you arm the quad. That's very important to see that your quad is armed. Now down here on arming, we're going to change that value to 180, and go ahead and down here to the bottom right, click Save and Reboot. So we're going to go out of Betaflight while the flight controller resets, and it should automatically come back in. You also want to be sure that you click Enable Expert Mode here, because we're going to do a few things in this tutorial part of this review that will help you update some of the stuff on here that needs to be changed. So we're going to go down next, a little further down. Accelerometer is good there. Personalization. This is where you can change your aircraft's name, your BAT-78, to say your FPV pilot name. So I'm going to leave mine at BAT-78 plus T8S. That's the radio link transmitter that we're using today. And the reason that we change arming angle to 180, by the way, is so that we can enable turtle mode on here, and that will be a crash recovery. If you flip upside down, you can hit that, be able to flip the quad back over. It's pretty cool. So receiver is set to serial base SpecSat S-Bus right here. That's the receiver mode, and the serial receiver provider is S-Bus there. So that's all good. We don't have GPS here. Other features, we're going to leave soft serial on. Telemetry, LED strip, of course. Air mode, we're going to leave on. OSD and dynamic filtering. If you want to add an extra beeper on here, you can also do that. Let's go ahead and add an ESC beeper. That's what that's for. You also have an external beeper on this quad, so you really don't need this, but sometimes I just do it as a backup in case the other one fails. So now we can go down to the power and battery, and we're going to change this minimum voltage down to about 320. Sometimes when you hit a high throttle, it will dip down to that, and the quad will start beeping. The warning cell voltage also, go ahead and change that down to about 325, and click Save at the bottom right. Now we're good there. We can go to failsafe. We always set all of our FPV race drones to drop if you lose signal from the quad. That is the failsafe procedure for all of the quads out there. If you had GPS on there, we could click GPS rescue, but unfortunately we don't have GPS on this little tiny guy. Now PID tuning, this is all going to stay the same. This is the stock setting out of the box. We've flown it today in the stock settings. If I find that there's too much vibrations, I will sometimes bring down these high numbers here. If they are above 80 and 90, sometimes I'll bring them down in the 50 range to start, and then bring them down further. So when you have a little bit too much vibration on the quad, it means that some of these numbers might be too high. So today we're going to leave them just like they are because they're fine. So receiver, this is where you can grab your transmitter, and go ahead and grab your radio. I'm going to grab mine, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn on the transmitter. And at this point, go ahead and grab a battery and plug in your battery. If we don't see anything moving there, that means that you need to plug in a battery to activate the receiver. So, okay, now you guys see that things are moving, and we're going to start on the right stick first. So the right stick should, if you push it to the right, you'll see that top bar. That's the roll axis, okay? And you have a little preview down at the bottom right that shows you how fast it's flipping, sort of simulated flip there, and you can change those rates as well. Now pitch, forward, up, down, that's also the right stick pushing forward and back. It should look just like that. And now the left stick, if you push it left, it should look like this, and right look like that. Now we're going to start with our switches. That aux3 is that channel 7 switch, and that is a 3-position switch. We also have channel 8, that's not active, that's sort of a slider switch. And we also have channel 5 here, and that looks like they have our beeper on that one. We're probably going to change around some switches just to the way I like it. And then also I'll include the CLI Dump, which will be a backup of all the things we did today in this part of the review. So channel 6 or channel 5 on the very right hand side of your transmitter looks like aux1, and let's see, the momentary switch would be channel 6 right above that. That's on aux2. That seems like a good spot for the beeper, aux2 there for channel 6 on your remote. So we're going to go down now. We're going to change some things. We're going to go to modes, and I don't like the way they have this set up. So we're going to make this a very basic setup for you guys. So we have 2 3-position switches. I always like to have my arm switch on the left hand side because I'm right-handed. I don't know why, but I've just done it that way since the beginning of time. So this one I'm going to change to, I believe it was aux3. So we're going to change this to aux3, and that will put your arm switch on the left-hand side of your transmitter. So when you go all the way out like this, you see it doesn't activate? That's because I didn't hit save. So now that we have it saved, you see that it indeed goes red. It says disabled there, but that's when it's going to be armed. That's quite a loud beeper on there. So angle mode, we're going to slide this over because I want that to begin with. So I want angle mode to be the first thing we go into. So we're going to change that to aux 1, and that should be the right-hand side switch, and that's channel 5 on your transmitter. So go ahead and click save. Now that's active. You can see it's gold there. And the next thing we're going to do is grab this in the center of these gold bars, slide back and forth like this if you grab them in the center. And now we're just going to scooch that in on the outside edges there. And when we go to the middle position of that switch, you want this gold bar to be right in the middle. So we're going to drag that over a little more. We're also going to change that to aux 1 because you see how it didn't coincide. So now if we click save, now Horizon's active on channel 5, which is also aux 1. So if you get confused, you can always go back to the receiver here, and let's double check that channel 5 on your radio is actually aux 1, okay? So go back to the modes page, and that's how you can flip back and forth just to check to see that you have it on the right aux, okay? So arm switch, aux 3 looks good, and we have Horizon. And then floating, free floating out here, there is no acro tab. So if you're looking to add acro to this quad, you'll never find it because Betaflight doesn't actually have a mode in this menu that is labeled acro. So when I first started using an old school version of this program called CleanFlight, it was quite a learning curve for me to figure out how to put acro on the quad. So, which in a way is good because it kept me from crashing. The first time I flew acro, I just immediately crashed. So fail safe, we're going to leave that. Beeper, we're going to change that to that momentary switch like I told you guys. So channel 6 on your radio, we're going to see which one that is. I can't remember which one it is, so I'm going to go back to the receiver and check that. It looks like aux 2, okay? So now we're going to go back to modes and beeper, so we're changing that to aux 2. So now that's my momentary switch. Now you see it move. Let's go ahead and slide that over to the end there because that will make it active on the when I push the switch, and go ahead and click save. And now you'll hear the beeper. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Cool. So save that. And LED low. It looks like they have some type of switch for the LEDs. And it looks like it's on the slider. So if you want to change your LEDs on this quad, you can. That's kind of cool. You can turn, it looks like they turn off when you get into this range right here. And then when I bring it back out of that range, back over here, they turn on. That's interesting. That's a cool control. That's actually pretty useful. So if you're outside and you're flying, you don't want to attract a lot of attention, you can turn those LEDs off. And a lot of times when I'm outdoors, I fly without LEDs. LEDs just tell everybody, hey, I'm flying a drone. So everything looks good here. And now we can go down to the OSD page, and this is where you can have a lot of fun. And it looks like SPC Maker has had a lot of fun here by adding everything on here. Even Northwest looks like I have a compass in the middle underneath the artificial horizon. You do not need that, so we're going to take that compass bar off. Turn that off. That's ridiculous. There is no GPS on this quad, so go ahead and turn that off. The next thing I like to turn off just because is I turn off my warnings. You can totally leave those on if you want to. I just don't like the extra stuff coming up on the screen and bugging me. So timer 1, we're also not going to use that. That's from the time you plug in the battery, and FPV community guys don't like that one. Everyone uses timer 2 because timer 2 is actually the time that you arm the quad. So that means the time that the motors are armed and flying. So we're going to just drag and drop that to the left-hand side of the screen. Did you see that? You can drag and drop it. Now, battery current milliamp drawn, I'm going to take that off just to free up a little more space on the screen. And I'm also going to remove the artificial horizon. That's always bugging me. And the worst thing in the world is that crosshair for me because it's always in the center of the screen bugging me. And a lot of times it's off with the direction that I'm flying. Maybe I have too much tilt in the camera of the quad. I'm going too fast, and it's just not in the center of the screen as far as what I'm looking at. So that's kind of a bug for me. So also artificial horizon sliders, and this is totally up to you guys. You can leave all this stuff on there. If you like it to look like a fighter jet, you can totally leave it on there. So down here at the bottom right, this is your information for your VTX, what kind of power you have, what band and channel you're on, and also the link quality. We're going to leave that on there. We'll see if that's actually activated and current. And this is your average cell voltage here and your total cell voltage here. And it's likely that you don't have a 4S battery on there. So it says 16.8 volts. That's not right. That's just a preview for you guys because this is a 2S quad. So everything looks pretty good here. BAT78 plus T8S there. You could add some more stuff up here. You could scooch things up to the top if you want to. But this is cool because all of this will be recorded onto your DVR in your goggles. So when you make videos to upload to the internet, if you don't want to have a lot of stuff on the screen, you can take a lot of this stuff off and just leave your battery voltage there. That's really the most important thing that you need on this quad when you're flying it, to be able to know what your battery is at. So we're going to go down to the CLI now after you have clicked save and see it's restarting. But we're going to go ahead and type version here just to see what version of Betaflight is on here. And it looks like STM32F411, and that is the firmware. So if you ever had to reinstall the firmware on this quad, that is the target that you want in Betaflight. And if you go outside of this part of the program, disconnect, there's a firmware update part for Betaflight, and that's more of an advanced thing. I don't recommend doing it if you're brand new. So we're going to type DUMP, and that will give you all the values on the flight controller that are programmed into this flight controller. So this looks like a lot of stuff here, and it is. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and save that to file, and that way you guys can have a backup of what we just did. So kind of quick, I know, but it's YouTube and videos recording. So we have now a CLI dump of all of this information for this quad, and the way I set it up for drone camps. Hopefully this mini camp tutorial helped you out, and if you need a backup of your quad and what we just did, or you want to add it to your quad, there are videos on there on YouTube on how to add a dump back to your quad. So make sure you do it correctly, and I will leave the link down below for the BAT78 CLI dump, and that'll take you directly to all this information that we just did as a file, and you can copy it, save it, download it, and that way you have a backup of everything we did today. So thanks again for watching my channel, guys. I'm Justin Davis. Enjoy the BAT78 Ready to Fly kit. It is a pretty cool kit, and really a lot of fun to fly, and one of the faster RTFs out there. So let's go ahead and say goodbye for now, and take care out there, guys. Never give up. Happy FPV. I'll see you on the next one.